Hi friends, what if you were suddenly told you had cancer? One phone call, one conversation, and everything changes. Do you have a game plan? In cancer, every step matters. The right diagnosis, the right team, the right mindset. If I ever face that moment, I wouldn't just ask what the best treatment is. I'd ask what the best approach is. Because the biggest mistake I've seen isn't trusting the wrong doctor. It's letting fear take the wheel. In this video, I'll walk you through exactly what I do if I had cancer. From my first thought to finding the right help. Not from theory, but from experience with patients, families, and the quiet lessons that only come from walking with others through it. The first thing I would remind myself, forcefully if I had to, is this: don't panic. Fear is understandable, but anxiety is unproductive. It clouds judgment, it steals sleep, and worst of all, it turns a diagnosis into an emotionally fatal thought when it doesn't have to be. Many cancers today, especially when caught early, are highly treatable. In fact, many are even curable. A Harvard psychologist, Dr. Ellen J. Langer, talked about how her mother had a fatal cancer diagnosis, but miraculously, it vanished with treatment. However, her mom's mental health never recovered, which just made her physically weaker. And unfortunately, that cancer came back within 9 months, and she didn't survive it the second time. Remember Steve Jobs? He was a visionary responsible for the creation of your smartphone. He passed from pancreatic cancer, which is still a very difficult cancer to treat. However, there are many people who have lived 10, 20, 30 years after their initial pancreatic cancer diagnosis. And I'm sure you've heard of other miracles too. And under stress, even the most intelligent, well-meaning people often make their worst decisions when driven by fear. And it's not because they're careless, but because anxiety narrows your vision. It makes a person reactive instead of strategic. And the goal is to find the right help to beat cancer. So take a deep breath, then take control and rewire your mind to break the negative feedback loop. One of the most overlooked parts of healing and longevity, maybe even the most powerful, is learning how to interrupt that spiral of negative emotions and negative thoughts. Fear feeds more fear. Stress fuels more stress. And the body follows the mind. So if I were diagnosed with cancer, I'd make it a daily, even hourly habit to actively reset my nervous system. Not with medications, but with simple science-backed tools. Now first, I'd start with posture. Now it may sound kind of silly, but it actually works. So let's stand tall. Stand on your feet, grounded, shoulders back, and chest open like a turkey. And then strike a Superman pose. Go in the mirror and do this. People do this all the time before they give a lecture. Research shows that this kind of power posture can immediately shift your body chemistry, raising confidence hormones like testosterone and lowering stress hormones like cortisol. And while you're standing in front of the mirror, say to yourself out loud, I will beat this. This is not wishful thinking. This is a statement of intention. A 2010 study found that just 2 minutes of power posturing, standing in an expansive position with your chest open and your hands on your hips, that lowered your stress hormone cortisol by 25% and increased your confidence hormone testosterone by 20%. You're literally telling your body to feel powerful and be powerful. And then I would go write that down. A simple sentence. I will beat this, or I will live, or I will heal. And I'd put that goal everywhere. On my bathroom mirror, while I'm brushing my teeth, I would read it. Next to my bed, I'll look at it right before I go to bed. On my refrigerator, every time I go and get some food. On my iPhone and computer as wallpaper. And this is because you will be surrounded by doubt. There is no doubt about that. And in the middle of that doubt, or on a very hard day, distracted by all these negative noise, you need reminders of where you're headed. Your brain needs visual cues that anchor you to your goals. Focus on your goal like an athlete. Tunnel vision. This is the time to have tunnel vision because your brain, it dictates the direction for your body. So next, I focus on my breath. Why? Because your breath is the remote control for your nervous system. Have you ever started hyperventilating when you're anxious? Well, your breathing becomes shallow and then fast and then erratic, and you retain more carbon dioxide that signals danger to your brain, triggering more stress. But if you flip the pattern, slow down your breathing, exhale fully to release all that carbon dioxide, you calm your mind. And this happens within minutes. And you can use a technique called box breathing, used by Navy SEALs, trauma specialists, and athletes. And it goes like this. Breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, hold again for 4 seconds, and then you repeat this cycle for 2 to 3 times, especially when you are feeling overwhelmed. So we can do it together. Breathe in for 4 seconds. Breathe out for 4 seconds. Breathe in for 4 seconds. Breathe out for 4 seconds. Do you feel a little bit better? Negative feelings should not dictate your actions when there is no danger. This isn't spiritual fluff, it's neuroscience. Box breathing activates your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest side of your brain, and it dials down the fight or flight mode that many people get stuck in. And when you do this consistently, power pose, affirmations, breath work, you see visual cues, you rewire your mental reflexes, you build your emotional muscle, and you stop reacting and you start responding with clarity, because you will need a lot of clarity to do number 2, which is to confirm the diagnosis. This is the most important second opinion of your life. So I'd make sure the diagnosis is correct. That's what a second opinion is for. Doctors are not infallible. Cancers can be misdiagnosed, and you can have the wrong type, the wrong grade, even the wrong tissue. But also, treatment protocols may vary from different centers. So I'd insist on a second opinion, even a third opinion, and not just from anyone. I'd send my biopsy slides to a pathologist who specializes in that exact type of cancer. Someone at a major academic center who has seen like a boatload of cases. Usually they will publish their findings. You can look up their credentials. And a lot of times they may offer telehealth as a second opinion so that you don't have to travel in person. You can just send your complete medical records. Most likely you're going to need a cancer specialist called an oncologist who will probably also know the right pathologist for your diagnosis. And remember, cancer is a tissue diagnosis. If you don't have tissue, abnormal images by themselves can be caused by other problems like infectious diseases such as tuberculosis that may mimic cancer. And if you get an infectious disease, potentially an antibiotic can cure you. Hence, it is very, very important to have tissue diagnosis and not to just assume abnormal imaging is cancerous. A second opinion might cost a few $100s, but this isn't time to be frugal. I would skip the vacation, put your home remodeling on hold for now, as well as that Disney trip. Save the extra stuff to celebrate after you get healthy and you're recovering from your cancer treatment. If the diagnosis is wrong, the treatment might not just be ineffective, but it can also still be very harmful. But in order for that second opinion specialist to be effective, you got to send your original pathology slides, original imaging for CTs, MRIs, your PET scans, and their corresponding reports. Gather every report, every scan, every image, every lab test, all the doctor notes that you've seen to keep for yourself a copy, and then you give the copy to the second opinion team. They may not return it to you. And owning your medical information is crucial to preserve your freedom of choice when it comes to healthcare. And precision of treatment begins with correct information. The more data you give to your new doctors, the better their treatment plan can be to help you strategize to beat cancer. And this is where number 3 comes in, assembling the right medical team. Your team will determine your outcome. And in general, cancer is not treated by one doctor alone. You need a coordinated group of specialists. In a major medical center, they often will have a whole team that specializes in one type of cancer. Now, first, if you have no doctor, you can't just keep going to the urgent care. You have to find yourself a good primary care physician, someone who can be your quarterback for your healthcare and coordinate between specialists and be your advocate. However, that person is unlikely to be a medical oncologist, a cancer specialist. Your oncologist, they'll help you map out a treatment plan and whether it's beneficial for you to have chemotherapy or immune therapy or radiation therapy. They will literally tell you what other doctors you need. And most likely, you're going to need the help of other doctors. and maybe even a surgeon. Now, most cancers would benefit from neoadjuvant therapy that is given prior to surgery to shrink the tumor. Sometimes it can make the tumor disappear. And this neoadjuvant therapy may be both in terms of chemical therapy, chemotherapy, as well as radiation therapy. And afterwards, if surgery is still needed, there are a variety of surgeons who specialize in different parts of your body. And some surgeons even specialize in specific cancers. There's actually a surgeon who just specializes in cancer. Those are called surgical oncologists. However, depending on the body part of surgery, you may need that body part specialist to help remove that cancer. And your surgery may not just be about removing the cancer, and it may also require someone to put you back together correctly. That's called reconstruction, and you may need a plastic and reconstructive surgeon to help you do that. Now, keep in mind, depending on the type of cancer and your medical problems, you may also need other specialists. For hormone-related tumors, you may need an endocrinologist. For cancers and other specific tissues, let's say your brain, you're going to need a neurosurgeon. If it's in your bone, you're going to need an orthopedic surgeon. And if you have heart issues, a cardiologist may also be involved. Don't feel overwhelmed with all these doctor appointments. Work with your primary doctor to see who you really need to see. And if you're not sure if you need someone or not, you can always Google that organ part and add the word specialist or the word doctor. It's a start of a well-informed conversation with you and your primary care team.
Hi, friends. I am so thrilled that you want to take charge of your health and take charge of your food. Now, I know nutrition can be complex, but it doesn't have to be. And I'm here to support you in this lifelong journey. So if you point your camera app to this QR code, it'll take you to a link for a free handout that I created just for you. And if you like it, if you want to see other handouts, please go to the link in my show notes, and then you can leave me your feedback on what I could do to help you in your journey. Okay, back to the video now.
Number 4 is to interview your specialists and your providers and ask questions like, how many cases like mine have you managed? Experience matters a lot. I would directly ask each of my doctors, how many patients with this specific cancer have you treated? And doctors who treat high volumes have more experience. But you don't just want someone experienced. You want someone with good outcomes. Now, I'm sure you know that doctors have online reviews, but here's the problem. Online reviews, they don't actually tell you how competent your doctor is. But you can ask your doctors, what are your complications and success rates? And what are your hospital's infection rate or readmission rate after this kind of procedure? And it's important to ask these questions because the doctor doesn't work in isolation. He probably practices in many institutions. There's a whole team when it comes to surgical care that includes ancillary staff from the surgical nurse to the staff that cleans the instruments. And these people are usually hired by the institution and may not be hired by the surgeon actually performing your surgery. A confident, experienced surgeon will not be offended. They'll usually answer transparently, and they understand different surgical centers have different outcomes. There are already published data on outcomes on certain procedures. Places with higher volume have been shown to have better outcome. This isn't necessarily always true though, but I understand it's hard for the average person to know that information. However, many physicians and surgeons work with other physicians and surgeons, and most likely they kind of know that information. So whenever you meet a doctor you trust, you should consider asking them who they would send their family members to. And if you forgot to ask that question, call the office back, leave a message with their staff, and ask them, can Dr. X recommend a specialist for whatever cancer you're dealing with? They'll know who's good. But objectively, you can also do some research online. You can go to CMS Care Compare, which is run by Medicare.gov. This lets you search hospitals and compare surgical complication rates, 30-day readmission rates, as well as infection rates. If your condition is rare or complex, look for centers of excellence. MD Anderson, Cleveland Clinic, the Mayo Clinic, those are all excellent facilities. You can use PubMed or Google Scholar to find surgeons who have published studies on the type of surgery that you need. And keep in mind that Yelp and Google reviews, they may reflect more the ancillary staff, the bedside manner, the wait times, but not necessarily the surgical outcomes. A surgeon may have poor online reviews, but still stellar surgical skills, and vice versa. And number 5, remember, don't let your emotions hijack your decisions. Control your mindset. It's easy to fall into despair after your diagnosis. And you may feel overwhelmed with what I just told you that you can do to expedite good, excellent healthcare for you. But emotions are not just psychological. They're actually physiological. Chronic stress can suppress your immune system, raise your cortisol, elevate your blood sugars, and fuel inflammation to promote your cancer to grow. Cancer, they love when your body is weak. And your negative feelings can cause massive amounts of inflammation. Take broken heart syndrome. It's actually real. It's scientifically known as Takotsubo cardiomyopathy. It's an intense emotional stress that can actually stun the heart and mimic a heart attack. Imagine if that's going on with your heart, what it's doing to your immune system. So I'd work hard to guard my mind, to control my emotions. And for me, that lies in my faith. And I've seen the power of prayer, the hope found in scripture, the comfort in knowing that I'm not carrying my burdens alone. Now, my foundation is in the Bible that shows how Jesus healed the sick. And it's hard to be hopeful without faith. And hope is not being naive. It's actually very powerful biology. And this is true for patients as well as their caregivers. Oftentimes, the caregivers, they carry a heavy burden too. And studies show that caregivers with chronic caregiving to do, those who have chronic negative emotions, they actually do worse. They have higher stress and worse immune function. Now, let's face it, the future is unknown for all of us, but it's vital to have hope. There are going to be so many distractions to try to chip away at your hope and make a person feel out of control and hopeless with negative emotions. Start getting your power back by controlling your time and prioritize things that help with recovery, like exercise. Number 7. This is not a random action. Exercise with purpose to train your immune system. Exercise isn't just about staying fit or looking good. It's about keeping your body in shape, activating your immune system through your muscles so that you can supercharge it and get it to work for you and to get that cancer. Now, moderate aerobic exercise increases natural killer cells, enhances T cell surveillance, and improves the circulation of immune components. But when you overtrain, that can suppress your immunity. So I would basically walk daily and hit at least 7,000 steps a day, do body weight movements for strength training, and get sunlight whenever I can. This is your immune system training. This is not aesthetics. And why does it matter? Well, because the future of cancer care is rooted in a strong immune system. We have immune checkpoint inhibitors that's currently used in certain type of cancers like melanoma, lung, kidney cancer. That doesn't kill cancer directly. What it does is it activates your immune system and it removes the brakes from your immune cells. But it doesn't work in everybody. And that's why there's other options. There's other ways to activate the immune system. And experimental therapy with modified viruses like polio-based therapy and glioblastoma, they're designed to invoke and provoke an immune response. And it seems to be working. Patients are surviving much longer. The best chance we all have to fight cancer is a strong immune system. And interestingly, sometimes patients who survive serious infections during cancer treatment, they actually do better. And the theory is immune activation may contribute to tumor clearance. This just shows how critical your immune system is to fighting. And this is why it's important not to overlook sleep as the most powerful, cheapest, and easiest way to recharge your immunity. Sleep is underappreciated, but it's so necessary for healing. When you're asleep, your body repairs. During deep sleep, your immune system resets. Natural killer cells rise, cortisol drops, and healing begins. And like everything else, you have to be consistent to get into deep sleep. That's good quality sleep. And when you're not sleeping during your waking hours, it's important to build a strong community. That is tremendously important. Isolation weakens immunity. People who feel unsupported don't live as long as those who feel supported. And this includes cancer. So lean on your family and friends, your faith groups, and ask them to pray for you. Connection heals. And for those of you who don't believe in faith or religion, you may believe in the power of placebo. Most people think of placebo as a sugar pill used in performing clinical research against real medications, but it's not. Placebo is when the mind is healing the body. body. Everybody knows the power of suggestion can turn a snake oil into an effective cure for that believer's ailment. Placebos are not irrelevant. And when a person believes that a sugar pill, a saline injection, or fake surgery or the wrong antibiotic can be used to cure a condition, then many times the cure actually follows. And did you know that the price of the pill may also dictate how effective the pill works? Studies show that the more you pay for the same pill, the more effective it tends to be. Pharmaceutical companies have to spend millions of dollars to prove that their drugs are more powerful than the placebo effect. That's the only way that they can get FDA approval. And unfortunately, we never hear about the thousands of studies that are just as effective as placebo, or when placebo actually outperforms the therapy. And I know this could be difficult to believe for yourself. And that is the power of suggestion, the power of community. And speaking of community, you have a gigantic community that walks around with you, living in your gut microbiome. Healing the body starts with healing the gut, which is number 9. Your gut microbiome, it shapes your immunity. In fact, studies show that the effectiveness of immunotherapy can depend on the diversity of your gut bacteria. And what shapes your microbiome more than anything? Your diet. Your food isn't just calories. It has fiber and antioxidants that feed your gut microbiome. And it also reduces inflammation, as well as provide your body with essential vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients that don't have any calories. And all of these ingredients, they synergistically increase your health and increase your immune system. Or if you're eating the wrong one, it can actually decrease your health and suppress your immune system. And when you don't eat fiber, you're not feeding your gut microbiome. And when you don't do that, it will actually start looking for food and eat the carbohydrate mucus that lines and protects your intestines from them. So your microbes can easily turn on you if you give them a good reason to, and that's basically by starving them. And it's not just that they can eat you from inside out, but it's also because bad microbes can actually overgrow and produce harmful metabolic byproducts such as trimethylamine oxide, TMAOs, or trimethylamine N oxide. And these molecules are produced in your body when you eat certain foods like meats, eggs, and dairy. And it's been increasingly linked not only to heart disease, but also to cancer and chronic inflammation and oxidative stress, which are all hallmarks of inflammation that increases cancer. Now, TMAO specifically has been shown to activate NF-kappa B, a transcription factor involved in inflammation and tumor progression. It increases reactive oxygen species and DNA damage, and it can also impair DNA repair. TMAO affects your macrophages and it polarizes them towards a tumor-promoting phenotype. It also activates fibroblasts, which supports the tumor scaffolding, as well as angiogenesis, which is a formation of new blood vessels to the tumor. And elevated plasma TMAO have been found in patients with colorectal cancer and hepatocellular carcinoma. And in animal models, specifically the mouse, when you give them TMAO, their tumors grow more. And in humans, high TMAO levels are correlated with poor prognosis as well as recurrence. But it turns out that those who eat a plant-based diet have significantly lower plasma TMAOs. Even when given L-carnitine, they don't produce TMAOs because their gut microbiome, it lacks the enzymes to convert it. Food is super important. That's why number 10, spend your time learning and thinking about how you can use your food as medicine and how to avoid those foods that are poisons. And I know many of you already think you eat pretty well. All your meals are whole foods packed with nutrient-dense foods. But how many times are you snacking in a day? What are you doing when you're snacking? And what are you eating during that time? And how much of the time are you doing that? 20%, 30%? Is that acceptable? When you choose a medical doctor, do you want that person to be 50% or 80% in and the rest of it, he's just goofing off? No matter how good your surgeon or doctor is, when he's in the OR operating, you want him to be 100% focused. But the thing is, no matter how good of a surgeon he is, and no matter how much chemotherapy you get, your doctor's jobs would be ineffective if you didn't take care of yourself, if you didn't sleep, eat well, exercise, and control your emotions and your mind. I'm sure you've met super bright people that just lack self-confidence and just never applied themselves in life. And so many times they can't find a job. And you probably know people who have exceeded your expectations in their field, even though they may not have been gifted with that much talent. Some of you may be afraid to make changes in your medications, even though your doctor thinks it's okay, but you don't want to look back and regret having taken a lower dose. Well, what about your food? What if choosing the right foods and going in 100% can lead to freedom from cancer, but eating the wrong ones, even 10%, can lead you to recurrence? Do you want to look back and regret that you weren't all in? This isn't about restriction. It's about optimizing your body to fight. If you want to learn more about which foods are best to eat, watch the next video.